Hello everyone, welcome yet again to another episode of Dinner Guide. I'm your host Chef Andy as usual, and today I'm going to be taking you on a beautiful journey. Remember, we are basically just filling in a couple of episodes on some beautiful grandma pots based in Kenya and all around Africa, but particularly on this day we are going to be taking you into central Kenya, and I'm going to be showing you how to make something so simple, something I learned over the weekend, and I know most of you are probably going to enjoy and try this at home on your own. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the ingredients we'll be working with today. I'll start with the farthest end. So I've got some parsley there and some leeks. I also have some beautiful fresh coriander and some regular iodized salt. I've also got some King Edward potatoes just peeled and cut. A beautiful bowl there with some green peas, some blanched and cored maize there. And then I also have some red and some white onion. I've also got some ginger and some garlic. And last but not least, I've got some pumpkin leaves. So these are particularly just the same pumpkin leaves you'd see around a pumpkin plant. And this is basically one of the beautiful, beautiful ingredients that's gonna bind the dish together. And last but not least, I'm also going to be adding a bit of chicken stock. So remember, this is just an alternative to using water. So you can actually squeeze in water in the same place of that, but everything else should be exactly as the recipe dictates. So we're going to take a short commercial break. If you're going to be taking any notes, this is your chance to grab your pen and paper. So when we come back, we're going to be showing you how to get on and make your very own Mukimo at home. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. We just finished introducing the ingredients we're going to be working with. Remember, as I said, this is an ongoing episode of a couple of series that we're going to be doing, and we're going to be basing them on grandma pots. And this particular grandma pot of today comes from central Kenya. I'm actually going to enjoy showing you this. So without further ado, we are just going to get started. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm first of all going to get my potatoes in a pot. So I'm just going to use this big pot. So in this bowl I've got about 5 peeled potatoes that have just been peeled and cut in half. So all I'm going to do is add those to the bowl with just a bit of water. And then I'm also going to add about a cup of chicken stock. And then basically all you want to do is cover the potatoes just until the liquid covers the top of the surface. And all we are going to do now is transfer this to the heat. And we're just going to let that boil. But as that continues, I'm also going to season it with just a pinch of salt. And we're just going to let that continue on its own. On this side, I also have a pan here that's nice and hot, almost ready to go. To that, we're going to be frying some of the ingredients which will be going into a beautiful Mukimo dish. So I'll firstly just take off the stems on this white onion, and I'm just going to look for a very fine chop. So just right through the middle there, and basically let your knife do everything for you. And for sure, we always take off the cores. So I'm just going to use about half a white onion, and I'm also going to use half a red onion. The beautiful thing about combining the two, it actually really gives a beautiful flavor, and it actually helps to really it actually helps you combine that beautiful sweetness of the red onion with some of the ingredients like the peas. And the white onion really combines the pumpkin leaves and the coriander and the leeks really well, and they marry really into a very beautiful flavor. So I'm just going to finish chopping up that red onion. So we have now about half a cup of chopped onions. I'm just going to discard those tips. And all I'm going to do now is, to a hot pan, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of regular cooking oil, just vegetable oil. And to that, we're going to fry our red and white onions. And just to really incorporate that nice richness of the onions, I'm also going to be adding some of the leaves from our celery. So I'm just going to take just a bit with the leaves off. Then I'm just going to quickly just roughly chop that. So I always like to just fold it into a nice round like that, and then just let your knife work right through. Right, so this is frying now for at medium to low heat. We're just going to give that a bit of time to just really infuse and color. And then to that, I'm also going to add my celery leaves. And we're going to turn up the heat a little. And basically all we're looking to is just sweat the onions. Remember, this is just a process of building the flavors. So we're just going to allow those to sweat for a little bit. And while that continues, I'm also going to be adding some ginger. So I'm just going to take a bit of skin off one of the sides of the roots. And very simply, I'm just going to cut some nice juliennes, and then I'm just going to turn that around and now cut that very finely. Right, lady, simple as that. Goes into the pan. Just going to grab a spoon here. And basically all you want to do is not color the onions, you just want to get them really fragrant. And just to be able to just get those onions now to just start sweating out a little more, I'm also going to add just a small amount of stock. Remember, the stock actually helps to deglaze the pan and combine your flavors. Right, so simple as that. To that, we are now going to add about a cup of peas, just fresh green peas. And I'm also going to add some blanched maize. So basically this was just kernel maize that was parboiled and rinsed off under running water. And basically now this is just about, we're basically just giving that a bit of flavor. And what we're going to do later on is now incorporate all the ingredients together and just give it a nice, beautiful finish. So I'm just going to let that continue, but I will add just a bit of stock. So remember, one beautiful thing with using stock as opposed to using water when you're cooking, stock really is a little more nutritious, it is a little more flavorful, and it actually works as a very good substitute to using water. Second of all is it's always a little nicer or a little better to work with stock because of the fact that, first of all, it adds nutrients and flavor to your food, and it doesn't give that bland, doesn't give that bland accompaniment to anything that you incorporate it with. So all I like to insist is, if you can manage to make your own stock, and remember, it's very simple, tons of recipes online. Check out our Facebook page, you might actually see how that's done. But very particularly, stock, if you do have time to make your own stock, do so. If you don't have enough time to make your stock at home, you could always use a stock cube, just dilute it in a bit of hot water, and it will give you a very beautiful finish to your dish, of course. So we're just going to allow that to simmer for a little bit. We're just going to let that come to the boil. And to that, I'm going to add about just 2 pinches of salt. Remember, you don't want to over-flavor the ingredients at this particular stage, and this is, of course, as I said, a very much grandma-like recipe. So it is actually very rich in nutrient, but almost very natural and somewhat bland with flavor. So as I said, we're not going to be incorporating anything but the freshest of ingredients with our Mukimo. And all we are going to do now is give that a few seconds. So what we're going to do now is, as soon as remember, the peas have been blanched, the maize has also been blanched. As soon as that starts to come to the boil, we are going to start just having it just almost overcooking. And that's the point where we're going to turn our water off and we're going to drain the excess liquid. Remember, as soon as the potatoes are done, we're going to be incorporating some of the other ingredients like the pumpkin leaves. So it is more like a 2-pot cooking process, and this is actually one of the easiest techniques you can achieve it really well. So all you want to do now is pay attention to your potatoes. So remember, these have gone in and they should be able to cook for about 6 to 8 minutes for that particular size. And what happens is once that's almost cooked through, just when it's just getting to the bitey stage, we are going to be incorporating all the other ingredients into the potatoes, and we're just going to mash it and then complete the dish. So a very, very simple technique, and one that most of you will be able to really get a hang of even from the first glimpse. So we're just going to give that a toss, and we're just going to allow that to continue on low heat. And while that continues, I'm going to just quickly clear this station. And all we are going to do now is just stir up some of this. So very, very simple. As I said, these are very delicate and they mash really, really quick as soon as they go into your pot. But just to try and cut down on the size and the time that it'll take to mash, I just like to cut it about 2 or 3 times like that, and I'll just leave it as a chunk. And we're just going to use about 3 cupfuls. So I'm just going to grab about another small hand from there. We're just gonna move that to the board, and as I said, always easier to cut your leaves. Just press them together and just give them one nice roll, and just let your knife go right through to the bottom. And now this is now ready to add to the potatoes. So remember, as I said, pumpkin leaves are a little more delicate than spinach or your regular kale, and they actually cook really, really quick. So it is actually crucial that you add them just before the potatoes are starting to get cooked. And they're just going to fall and just marry with the potatoes. And remember, as I said, they need a very short time to cook. Remember, it's also important that you don't overcook them, because you are trying to preserve a bit of that nutrient in there. Right, so now this is about done. So all I'm going to do now is turn that off, and we're just going to leave that in the pan. We're also going to check on our potatoes and see how that's coming along. So these are going to be about another 4 to 5 minutes. So while that continues, I'm probably just going to be quick and be frank about the recipe. As I said, very, very simple grandma pot. And remember, some of the techniques we're using to actually bring this dish to you today. Remember, grandma pots are very much a traditional way of cooking. They take a bit of time and a bit of passion and a bit of love. But particularly for those of you who are going to be making this at home and you're trying to really beat that delay, and maybe you're just trying to save time and make a very quick 20-minute dinner, this is probably the easiest way to do it. Although there is tons of info online, you can actually be able to see how it's done traditionally, and it probably will take a little longer than the time we're going to be doing it on TV. So very crucial that you actually do a bit of research on the dish before you conclude and stick with the one recipe that we're using today. Right, so potatoes are just almost there. Just going to check those, still tough. Right, so we're just going to continue cooking those. We're going to cook those for about another 4 minutes. But while we wait for those to complete their cooking process, I'm going to take a short commercial break. I'm going to clear up this mess. And when I come back, I'm actually now going to show you how to actually complete this beautiful dish. Remember, our filling is almost done. As soon as the potatoes are just almost finished, we're going to be incorporating the pumpkin leaves. And then we're just going to finish that off with a bit of seasoning, a bit of chopped parsley and chopped coriander. But don't touch that dial. As I said, don't touch that dial. We will be right back, and you will be able to see how all that is done. So don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We took a short commercial break and we were just finishing off the potatoes that were boiling on the side, and now they're almost done. So I'm just going to quickly pull your attention to this side of the stage. So if you can be able to look into that pot, you can be able to see that the pumpkin leaves are already starting to shrivel. They're basically now soft and tender, and they're just about ready to mash. So very, very simple thing or technique to really get a very beautiful mukimo. First of all, I'll just move this pot a little closer. So one particular technique I like to use just before I actually finish off the whole dish and start mashing everything up. Always crucial, what I do is I look for that bit of liquid right at the bottom of the pot. So you should be able to tilt it and there should be just a bit of liquid down there. That actually really helps in rushing the process of the mashing stage. So very simple, as I said, we're just going to incorporate all the ingredients into the one big pot that we are finishing everything off in. So be sure to always move your ingredients to a pot big enough for you to be able to mash or combine all your ingredients together. So I'm using a masher for this particular process, but if you do have a wooden spoon, it actually will do the same thing. So very simply, I'm just going to use my masher. And basically this is just to help me in breaking the potatoes. Remember, the potatoes do need a bit of mashing. You do need to break them up apart a bit quicker. So this is a very good tool for that. But as I said, if you do have a wooden spoon, it will do just as well. Right, so now very crucial at this stage that the pot is at very low heat. Remember, you don't want to try and reduce the liquid anymore. Remember, it's already reduced. So this is just to give it enough heat for it to actually be able to mash very easily. So I'm just going to keep going round. And very crucial, I also like to keep turning my pot around. It also helps you to really fasten the process of the mashing. So I'm just going to keep going just until you've managed to break up all the pumpkin leaves, and your peas should actually start to also break up as you continue. So what you're looking for is a transition from a very plain white and green mixture to one more consistent color. So you're basically just looking at a beautiful marriage of the colors in your pot. And particularly a good characteristic, as they told me in Central Province, very particular, and actually you actually boast the importance of your mukimo dish based on its color. So very crucial that you take your time in mashing. Remember, the peas that you had in there, they are also going to contribute really much in that beautiful green color. The pumpkin leaves as well. So basically, as you continue, the mixture should just start to really go green, and you should be able to just only notice the specks of the maize. So I'm just going to add just a small pinch of salt for seasoning. I'm just going to mix that around. And remember, this is still sitting on very low heat. But just before we finish that off, I've also got some beautiful coriander and parsley to finish off the dish. I particularly like to use fresh herbs like this because they particularly add a beautiful finish and color to your dish. And they also give that beautiful herby finish to any dish that you're actually working with. So very crucial that you try and keep the mixture as moist as possible while you're still mixing the ingredients. And particularly if you had cooked your potatoes and you reduced too much of the water, you can also just use that reserve chicken stock that you had. And it's why I said don't always discard the liquid too quickly. Always spare some on the side. It might actually be very handy much later. So just simply, I'm just going to grab my parsley, always press it flat onto the board and just let the knife go right through. So simple as that. And last but not least, my beautiful coriander. So I'm just going to try and break off as much stalk as I can find in there. And all you're looking for is just the leaves. So do take your time to try and split the leaves from the stalks. Remember, you can't really mash the stalks in there. So what happens is the moment you incorporate any stalks into the dish, you will actually be able to pick them out, and they do really ruin the presentation and the finish of your dish. I'm just going to just press those again, just as I did with the parsley, onto the board, and then just let my knife shred right through that to the end. If you do have any pieces of stock, just put them to the side. So into the pot now went in about 3/4 teaspoon of parsley and about a full tablespoon of fresh coriander. All I'm going to do now is use my masher just to give that a mix. And actually immediately the herbs go in, you actually start to get the beautiful flavors. The aromas start to really stick out, and as I said, parsley and coriander do really make that difference when you use them to finish off a dish. So if you do have them sitting around, do add them to your mukimo. It will make a difference. But if you don't, you could optionally just avoid it, and you'll still be able to come up with a beautiful dish. So the mukimo is now done. I'm just going to switch spoons now. So I particularly like to move from a masher to a wooden spoon. Remember, the masher is just to actually help you break the bigger parts of the bigger chunks of the potato. But now the wooden spoon actually gives you a more creamier finish. So you'd basically just be working this just like you do with regular mashed potatoes. And what I do is I like to give it a bit of a bashing. And this particularly helps it to cream a little better. And it also makes sure that if you do have any of those ingredients that didn't really mash well together, you can actually be able to pick them up at this stage, and you can be able to see right through. So I would say probably using your masher, you probably be working with your mixture for about 5 to 6 minutes. Then switch to a wooden spoon or any spoon that you prefer, and then just use that to just continue creaming the mixture until it's got that nice, beautiful green color to it. So one particular checkpoint, you should be able to actually pick it up with your spoon, and as soon as you turn your spoon around, it should be able to hold on to the spoon. Very, very simple checkpoint to tell that your mukimo is perfectly cooked and your potatoes are well mashed, and that your mixture is not also too wet or too dry. Right, so simple as that. And all we are going to do now is move this to a plate. So particularly with the people or the chefs that taught me how to make this, particularly in that part of the country, a lot of families might not be able to afford to eat an all-round meal like most of us in the city would. And most of the people that I met on that side of the country actually insisted that it actually is one dish that could be eaten as it is. So we're just going to serve it just the way we learned it, the way we know it, and the way we like it. So very easy. Just a bit of mukimo onto the plate, and reserve the rest for later. And last but not least, just a bit of garnish, and that is done. So ladies and gentlemen, as I said, very, very simple dish, very, very classic, very inspired dish. So remember, this is one of the many dishes that we're going to be airing on this particular segment of the show on Dinner Guide. We're going to be going around Kenya, and we're going to be showing you some beautiful grandma pots. And today you have just managed to witness a very, very beautiful one from the central part of the country. So it has been a pleasure hosting the show and being with all of you today. I hope you've enjoyed it and you've learned something new that you can actually use in the future or even this evening. My name is Chef Andy, and I have been your host. I do also recommend, do check out our Facebook page, do check out our videos. There's plenty of stuff to learn, there's plenty of stuff to actually be able to be entertained by. Also catch our episodes airing on BrandPlus TV. Don't miss out. If you do have any questions or comments, do get back to us and we'll be happy to get back to you. So from the studios and myself, it has been a pleasure. Have a lovely evening. Have a lovely Christmas season and enjoy your dinner this evening. Bye-bye.